So as I go through the reveal in a moment, notice that each sign I name has a direct planetary connection to one of this week's active alignments. That's not superstition dressed up as mystery. It's simply the internal logic astrology has used for a very long time to explain why identical skies produce different lived experiences for different people. Before I say the actual names, let me tell you what this surprise typically will not look like. Because expectation shapes what we're able to notice, and I don't want you missing your own moment because you were watching for the wrong thing. This rarely arrives as something you have to fight for, chase down, or negotiate into existence through sheer force. If you find yourself straining hard this week, pushing against resistance, trying to manufacture an outcome through willpower alone, that effort itself is often a sign you're pushing against the fog rather than standing in front of one of the actual open doors. The real offers this week tend to arrive with comparatively little resistance once you're in the right place to receive them. What it might look like instead: a message from someone you weren't expecting to hear from. A comment in an ordinary conversation that quietly opens a door nobody had mentioned before. A written offer with real terms attached to it. An invitation to something you'd quietly hoped for but never said out loud. For some of you, this will be professional. A role, a project, a piece of recognition finally spoken plainly. For others, it will be personal, a reconciliation, a reaching out, a relationship softening after a stretch of tension. Watch your messages with a little more presence than usual, especially between the 17th and the 19th, not obsessively. Just awake instead of on autopilot. All right, here they are. If you're an Aries, this window is shaped by Mars, your ruling planet. And even though Mars has spent the last several days tangled in that uncomfortable fog with Neptune, it's also the planet actively driving you toward this week's turning point. What that means practically is this: something you've been quietly pushing toward. A project, a request, a decision you've been building momentum around is going to reach a moment where you either commit or you don't, likely right around the 19th. The surprise for you isn't necessarily a gift landing gently in your lap. It's more like a green light finally appearing after what's felt like a long stretch of yellow. Someone may greenlight a plan you'd started to assume was stalled for good. A yes may arrive faster and more decisively than you expected, almost startling in how quickly it moves once it starts moving. Watch for a message or a conversation between the 18th and 20th that asks you to decide something on the spot. Say yes to the version of it you actually want, not the version you think you're supposed to want. If you're a Cancer, the moon is yours, and this window's entire emotional center. The first quarter moon on the 19th belongs to you in a very direct way. This surprise is likely to feel less like an external event and more like an internal shift that then produces something outward. Expect a moment of unexpected emotional clarity, possibly triggered by hearing from someone from your past, a family member, an old friend, someone connected to your sense of home and belonging. This could come as a reconciliation you weren't actively pursuing, or as a piece of news about your living situation, your family, or your closest circle that resolves something you've been carrying quietly for a while. The specific texture to watch for is a feeling of relief, mixed with tears you didn't expect to have ready. If something makes you cry this week in a way that surprises you, pay attention. That's not just emotion. That's the moon delivering something it's been holding for you. If you're a Virgo, Mercury is yours, and this week's alignment between Mercury and Saturn lands on you with real precision. Expect this to show up specifically through your work, your daily responsibilities, or the quiet, careful effort you put into things that often go unnoticed by other people. Someone in a position to actually change your circumstances, a supervisor, a client, a decision maker, is likely to finally say clearly what they've perhaps only implied before, that they see the work you've been doing. This might arrive as a formal offer, a raise, a new role, or simply a serious conversation that changes how you're regarded going forward. The texture to watch for is formality. This won't arrive as a passing comment, It will come with more structure than usual. A scheduled conversation, a written message, someone taking the time to organize their thoughts before reaching out to you specifically. Don't mistake that formality for coldness. It's often exactly the opposite. Someone taking you seriously enough to prepare. If you're a Libra, Venus is yours, and this week's gentle link between Venus and Jupiter is speaking directly to you. This is likely to arrive through a relationship rather than a document, an old tension finally softening. Someone you've been quietly negotiating with, personally or professionally, becoming unexpectedly open to what you've been proposing all along. If there's something you've been hesitant to ask for directly, a boundary, a change, a specific request you've talked yourself out of more than once, this window favors finally voicing it, because the person on the other side is unusually likely to meet you halfway without requiring you to do all the emotional labor of the compromise yourself. Watch for someone else initiating the peace this time, instead of you being the one who always smooths things over first. If you're a Capricorn, Saturn is yours, which makes this alignment feel less like a burst of sudden luck and more like something finally arriving on schedule, the way most meaningful things tend to arrive in your life deliberately, and often through official channels rather than casual conversation. This could look like a formal offer, a written confirmation, a call you weren't fully expecting regarding something you've been quietly working toward for longer than most people around you realize. It will come with real structure attached, terms, a timeline, something concrete enough that you can't wave it away as wishful thinking. If part of you instinctively looks for the catch, even after reading the details twice, that instinct isn't wrong exactly, but it may be running longer than it needs to this particular week. What's arriving isn't a trick. It's closer to payment for effort you've already put in quietly over a long stretch of time. That's 5. If your sign wasn't named, please don't take that as this week having nothing for you, because it genuinely isn't true. The fog described earlier, the delayed replies, the shifted plans, the strange tiredness, that part of the sky is touching all 12 signs, not just the 5 receiving something concrete. What this window is asking of the other 7 signs is a little different. It's not asking for action yet. It's asking for honesty about what's actually feeling unclear right now. If that's you, take a moment and name, even just to yourself, one specific thing that's felt foggy this week. Drop it in the comments if you'd like, your sign and one word for what's felt unclear, because I read these and I'm genuinely curious whether a pattern forms across signs that didn't get named today. It might be worth its own video. Now, a few honest cautions, because a window like this one has a very specific failure mode. And I'd rather warn you clearly than let you find out the hard way. Do not sign anything, verbally or on paper, that you haven't fully sat with. Neptune's lingering fog from the eclipse period tends to dissolve boundaries first and only clarify consequences later, which means a decision that feels inspired and obvious in the moment can look completely different by the time a few more days pass. This isn't a week to force resolution onto something that genuinely still needs time. It's a week to act clearly on what's actually clear and let what's still foggy stay foggy a little longer without panicking about it. Both can be true in the same 24 hours. A concrete offer with real terms is safe ground. You can engage with that directly. A conversation that leaves you feeling vaguely inspired but unable to explain exactly what was decided deserves a follow-up in a few days. Not an immediate commitment, a simple test that might help. Could you explain the specifics of what's in front of you clearly to someone else? Right now in plain language without any hand-waving? If yes, you're likely standing in front of a real door. If the explanation keeps sprawling the longer you try to give it, you're likely standing inside noise. And noise this week is allowed to simply pass through without a response from you. Here's a small exercise if you want something concrete to actually do with all of this, rather than just absorbing it and moving on. Grab whatever you have nearby to write with right now if you can. List 3 things currently occupying your mind, whatever's actually sitting there today. Next to each one, write a single word, either clear or foggy. Don't overthink it, just go with your gut reaction. The clear ones are where this week wants your action. The foggy ones are where this week wants your patience. Most people who try this honestly are surprised by how quickly the list sorts itself once they stop trying to solve everything with the same level of urgency. For the days themselves, here's a simple way to move through them. On the 17th, as Mercury and Saturn begin linking up, pay closer attention than usual to any conversation that feels more serious or more carefully worded than the situation seems to call for. That extra weight is meaningful. Don't dismiss it as someone overreacting. Something has felt different since the eclipse, hasn't it? Not dramatic, not obvious, just different. A friend went quiet who never goes quiet. A plan you thought was settled suddenly wasn't. You woke up at 3 a.m. 2 nights in a row for no reason you could name, and when you finally fell back asleep, the dreams were louder than usual, more vivid, more specific. The kind you remember 3 days later, even though you tried to forget them on purpose. Maybe you've been more tired than the amount of sleep you're getting should explain. Maybe your chest has been carrying a low hum of anxiety that doesn't attach itself to any one worry. It just sits there humming, waiting. If any of that sounds familiar, I want you to know right now, before we go any further, that you are not imagining it. You are not being dramatic. You are not losing your grip on a completely ordinary week. Something did shift. The solar eclipse that passed through the sky recently didn't just come and go quietly, the way an ordinary new moon does. Eclipses don't ask permission before they rearrange things. They plant something underground, out of sight, and then they leave you to feel the disturbance in the soil without ever showing you exactly what got planted. That's what these last several days have been. The disturbance, the unsettled soil. And today, I want to tell you what's coming up out of that soil between August 17th and August 20th, because for 5 specific zodiac signs, something is about to break the surface. Not vaguely, not someday. This week, a message, an offer, a door that's been closed for a while creaking open. And I promise you, before this video ends, I will tell you exactly which 5 signs and exactly what to watch for. And exactly what it might look like when it arrives. Because I don't think vague reassurance helps anyone. I think specifics help. So stay with me, because the reasoning matters just as much as the reveal. And if you skip to the end, you'll miss the part that actually helps you recognize it when it shows up in your own life. Before you scroll any further, drop your sign in the comments right now before you know anything else. I want to see how many of you already have a feeling about this without me saying a word. Here's what's actually been happening in the sky, in language that doesn't require a degree in astrology to follow. Eclipses work like a hinge. They don't complete a story in a single day, the way people sometimes expect. A solar eclipse opens something quietly, almost invisibly, and then the days and weeks that follow are when that opening starts to show itself in ordinary life, through conversations, through timing, through the small coincidences that stop feeling like coincidences after the 3rd or 4th time they happen. Right now, we're sitting inside that follow-through window, and it's a particularly loud one because several other things are converging on top of it at the exact same time. The moon is currently building toward a first quarter phase, and it lands directly in the middle of our window, right around August 19th. If you've never paid attention to lunar phases before, here's the short version. The days after a new moon or an eclipse are for gathering, for quietly collecting pieces without fully understanding what they'll become. The first quarter moon is the moment that gathering phase ends and the sky essentially asks you a question. Now that you've been collecting all these pieces, what are you actually going to do with them? It doesn't whisper the question gently. It tends to arrive as a small crisis of decision, an unmistakable feeling that something needs to move, whether or not you feel fully ready. That landing point right in the heart of our window, is part of why this particular stretch of days feels louder than an ordinary week. At the same time, Mercury, the planet that governs communication, decisions, and the words people choose to say out loud, is moving into a supportive, structured alignment with Saturn, the planet of seriousness, commitment, and follow-through. When these two link up in a smooth way, conversations stop feeling like small talk and start carrying actual weight. Someone who has been vague with you may suddenly become specific. Someone who has been silent may suddenly choose their words with real care. This is the kind of alignment that turns a passing comment into an actual offer, because Saturn doesn't let Mercury's words evaporate the way they normally might. It gives them structure. It gives them follow-through. Venus, meanwhile, the planet of affection, value, and connection, is forming an easy, generous link with Jupiter, the planet of expansion and luck. This is a softer signal than the Mercury-Saturn one, less about formal words and more about warmth, generosity, and doors opening through relationships rather than paperwork. When Venus and Jupiter link up gently like this, people tend to become more open-handed than the situation strictly requires. Offers that could have been small suddenly become bigger. Invitations that could have been ordinary suddenly feel meaningful. And underneath all of that, there's still some genuine turbulence left over from the eclipse itself. Mars, the planet of action and urgency, has been rubbing up uncomfortably against Neptune, the planet of dreams, illusion, and blurred edges. This is the part responsible for the fog. The forgotten details, the plans that shift sideways for no clear reason. The conversation that felt clear in the moment and completely foggy an hour later when you tried to recall exactly what was agreed to. If you felt like your own memory or focus has been slightly unreliable this week, that's not a personal failing. That's simply the atmosphere everyone is currently standing in. So here is the actual shape of this window, because I think it helps to see it laid out plainly instead of feeling it as one undifferentiated wave of intensity. Two forces are pulling in one direction toward fog, delay, and confusion. Two other forces are pulling in the opposite direction toward clarity, offers, and real forward motion. Both are happening at the same time, over the same days, which is exactly why this week can feel disorienting, even when good things are actively arriving inside it. You are not meant to experience only relief or only confusion this week. You are meant to experience both, layered on top of each other. And the actual skill being asked of you is learning to tell them apart in real time, rather than treating every intense feeling as equally important. I want to be honest with you about something, because I think false certainty helps no one. I'm not telling you these are proven scientific facts about the physical universe. What I'm describing is a spiritual lens, a way that astrology has long been used to interpret timing and meaning in a life, the same way a favorite song can carry emotional weight beyond its literal notes. Whether you take these transits literally or simply as a poetic mirror for what you're already sensing in your own life, the underlying invitation is the same. Pay closer attention this week than you normally would. Something is moving. Now, 5 signs are about to receive something specific and concrete inside this window, roughly between August 17th and August 20th, with the 19th sitting at the very center of it as the day when nearly everything peaks at once. I'm not going to tell you the names yet, because I want you to actually understand why these 5 and not the other 7, and I promise that understanding will make the reveal land differently than if I'd simply read you a list the reasons certain signs are singled out. During a window like this comes down to something called rulership. Each planet involved this week, the Moon, Mercury, Venus, has a natural home, a sign or signs it governs most directly. When a planet forms a significant alignment, the signs it rules feel that alignment with unusual precision, almost like it was addressed to them by name. While the rest of the zodiac experiences the same sky, more like general background weather. Think of it the way rain falls the same everywhere it falls, but a plowed field absorbs it completely differently than a stretch of pavement does. The rain isn't personal, but where it lands and what's been prepared to receive it changes everything about the outcome. On the 18th, stay a little more open than usual to warmth that arrives without an obvious reason attached. If someone reaches out generously, let yourself receive it at face value for a moment before your instincts start looking for hidden strings. Not every open hand is holding something behind its back. On the 19th, the day everything converges, clear your evening if you reasonably can. Not because something dramatic requires it, but because this is the day the fog and the clarity both peak at the same time, and moments like that ask for presence more than productivity. If you're one of the 5 signs, this is the day to actually respond to whatever has arrived, rather than sitting on it out of habit. If you're one of the other 7, this is the day to write down plainly whatever's felt foggiest. Not to solve it, just to see it in your own handwriting, separate from the noise pulling at your attention. On the 20th, expect things to ease, but not all at once. Mars doesn't fully clear its friction with Neptune the moment the 19th ends, so the day after tends to feel like the volume turned down by a noticeable amount rather than switched off completely. Give it through the weekend before deciding whether the week's tension has genuinely passed. Fog lifts unevenly in patches, the way morning fog actually clears, with parts of the view opening up minutes before others do. If someone close to you seems unusually scattered or on edge this week, there's a real chance they're standing inside this same weather without any language for it. You don't need to explain eclipses or planetary aspects to them. Sometimes the more useful thing is simply naming what you notice, plainly, without diagnosing it. Something like, "You've seemed like you're carrying a lot lately," tends to land far better than any astrological explanation would. People moving through fog usually don't want the mechanism explained to them in the middle of it. They mostly want to feel seen while they're moving through it. I'll leave you with this. Whatever this window hands you, whether it's one of these 5 specific surprises or simply an honest, uncomfortable moment of naming what's felt unclear, you were never asked to navigate any of it perfectly. You were only ever asked to notice it clearly enough to take your next step with open eyes instead of closed ones. The eclipse planted something. This week is testing what holds, and soon enough you'll get to see exactly what grew. If this landed for you, tell me your sign in the comments and what this week has actually felt like. Whether you were one of the 5 or not, because I read every one of them, and I build the next video directly out of what you share here. If you know someone who's seemed a little off lately, someone who said all week that something feels strange without being able to explain why, send them this. They'll probably want to know why. And if you'd like more of this, consider subscribing, because Wednesday is coming, and I don't think you'll want to miss what it brings.